guys be with you in just a second. Shout out to everybody around the world. I will be on in 2 minutes. 2 minutes to be exact. We will be on. I'm just setting up the lights right now. Oh boy, you don't want to miss this explosive episode right now. But yeah, we will be on, and I will get a timer on, an exact timer, so 2 minutes to be exact. Okay, so we will be starting in about, let's see here, 12 minutes. I'm sorry, not exactly 12 minutes, but 30 seconds to be exact. So 12 minutes, stream starts. There we go. All right, let's get this thing cracking, shall we? Because I've got an explosive show for everybody today. Yes, I do. All right. All right, so shout out to everybody around the world that is tapping in right now. I've got some explosive news for you, and I'm going to only speculate on this particular matter, okay? Now, here's the thing. I'm not sure if it was Islam Makhachev that had pulled out on the White House card, okay? Now, however, there's a lot of speculating reasons as to say that. But I need you guys to understand the preface of this, okay? The preface of this is that we don't know if it is Islam Makhachev or not. We don't know. We honestly do not know. We can only speculate. And the reason why we can only speculate is because, for one, you need to understand Dana White does not want anyone to know whether that is a fact or not, right? We don't know if that is the reason why, or we don't know if it is Islam Makhachev that had pulled out, or if it was John Jones, or if it was Peter Yan. But I will say the most plausible reasons, or the most plausible people that are involved in this is, number one, Islam Makhachev. Number two, John Jones. Obviously, it's John Jones, being that he has come out recently saying what he was saying. Peter Yan is another example, because obviously a title fight for Sean O'Malley, an American star at the White House, I think was really essential for this particular card. What I'm about to tell you may or may not shock a lot of people, but at the same time, take it with a grain of salt, okay? It was Islam Makhachev that would probably say, I don't want to fight at the White House because there's a lot of political implications behind it. He says, for as much as they hyped it up, I don't think it's that of a great card. Okay, so you guys need to understand, this is the fight business, right? You're not going to get everything that you want, all right? That's the unfortunate part about it. He says, I think that's how most people feel about it. Right, here's the thing, right? Most people are not in the fight business, and that also includes me, okay? I'm in the entertainment portion of the fight business, MMA streaming. That's the entertainment portion of it. But to be honest, are we really in the UFC's office on a daily basis? The answer is no. We're not at the UFC's office on a daily basis. And the reason for that is because we don't work for the UFC. We don't know anyone that works for the UFC. And so we can only speculate and act like we know what is going on, but in reality, we don't. Let me tell you why, okay? Okay, let's start off with Islam Makhachev first and foremost. Or actually, you know what? I'll save that for a little bit. Because there's a political implication as to why Islam Makhachev did not participate in this card. It's a political implication, okay? And it may shock a lot of you, but it won't. And I'm going to go into political reasonings behind it, okay, particularly in the Muslim world, particularly what's going on in Iran right now, which, by the way, you would be really stupid to not believe that Khabib would advise Islam not to take part at the UFC White House with all of these things that are going on right now. Now, you're probably thinking, well, didn't Khabib meet Donald Trump? I believe it was, I don't know where it was, UFC Miami or something like that. That famous footage of Khabib shaking hands with, you know, the current president right now, Donald Trump, right? Yes. He at the time, Donald Trump had never really attacked a Muslim country. I mean, you could say, you know, he had fought ISIS. You could say that he had deployed people in, you know, different parts of the Middle East during the time of his first term or maybe even his second term. But right now, okay, it is blatantly clear that it is a very unpopular war. It is a war that takes place in a Muslim country. And as a result of that, you would be really stupid to not believe that Islam Makhachev pulled out due to political reasons. Okay? Look, Khabib, he's always mentioned and has always maintained the reality of this, right? He said that I am not a politician, I am sportsman, okay? This was his big thing every time, right? I am not, you know, I'm a sportsman, I'm not a politician. He maintains this on, you know, on a constant basis, on a consistent basis, he maintains this. But you have to understand, by the end of the day, I know the type of mindset that Khabib has. He is a fundamentalist Muslim, okay? And I know a thing or two about fundamentalist Islam, okay? Obviously, if you look at my beard, you look at my appearance, okay? Everything about me smells and reeks of fundamentalist Muslim. And I don't apologize for that. I don't apologize for, number one, not celebrating Christmas. I don't apologize for not celebrating Thanksgiving. I don't apologize for not partaking in, you know, whatever holiday that has nothing to do with Ramadan or Eid. I don't apologize for that. Why? Because I live a very fundamentalist Islamic life. Now, that does not mean I am a terrorist. It does not mean that I'm willing to cause harm to the United States. That's obviously not the case, right? But I have certain principles that will not allow me to do certain things or partake in certain things. For example, gambling. You'll never see me gamble, ever. Now, do I have homeboys that gamble who are Muslim? I think you know who I'm talking about when we speak of that particular subject, right? That's the reality of it, but not me. Okay, I'm not going to gamble. You're talking to a guy that left the car business due to the fact that it has, well, anti-Islamic practices that are involved in those particular fields. For one, the anti-Islamic practice of usury, of interest rates and things of that nature, right? Which I don't want to participate in, and quite frankly was very ignorant to that reality when I was participating in it or when I was in that particular field of work. In turn, I decided, you know what, I'm going to put my trust in Allah, finish school, finish college, and find myself in a different realm, in a different sector, and also in a different type of work environment that is more clean, that has nothing to do with gambling, has nothing to do with usury, has nothing to do that will make me feel guilty of my Islamic practices. So I'm saying that to say this. Islam Makhachev pulled out of the fight with Ilia Topuria at the White House because he does not want to represent the United States in what they are doing right now. Okay? That is the reason why. And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, Islam Makhachev ducked Ilia Topuria. You're saying that because you're angry of the fact of how uneventful this White House card has become. So you're going to say that. You're going to say, well, he pulled out of this fight because, you know what, he is ducking Ilia Topuria. Is that really the case? Do you think if Islam Makhachev was offered a fight against Ilia Topuria in Miami, or in Abu Dhabi, or in California, or anywhere else that has nothing to do with the White House or has some sort of political implications behind it, do you think that he will say no? First of all, do you think that he'll say no to fighting anybody? And the answer is no. Islam Makhachev will not back down from anybody, but he also has principles, and he's not going to fight for your entertainment for the sake of entertaining people that he doesn't even know. Now, look, I understand a lot of us do pay his salary, but guess what? The White House is one fight card, and there's going to be plenty more fight cards after that. Because, by the way, that is the UFC model by the end of the day. The UFC model is that, hey, you know what? There is the next fight and the next fight and the next fight. They don't think about going out of sale business the way that Dana White describes boxing. No, they maintain a certain level of continuation, a certain level of storytelling between these fights that leads to the next fight, indicative of the fact that, well, how about the time when you saw Israel Adesanya getting up there after a Dricus du Plessis fight, calling him the N-word, right? What is the purpose of that? Well, obviously the purpose of that is to build up a fight, because there is a fight that is coming up always, even after an international fight week, even after a UFC London card. So you can call Islam Makhachev a duck all you want, but the reality is Islam Makhachev will fight Ilia Topuria at some point of his career, especially if they continue to remain undefeated and they continue, well, not undefeated in the case of Islam Makhachev, but undefeated in the case of Ilia Topuria, and the high winning streak that Islam Makhachev is enjoying right now and will continue to do so if if time permits, or the right matchups are favorable towards him, which I would say the majority of them are. Right? There's also Ian Gary, but here's the thing. Always remember, Islam Makhachev is not ducking, and I've seen a lot of people that say that. But I'm here to tell you there is a political implication as to why Islam Makhachev is not fighting at the White House. And it is because you need to understand that the United States right now is engaging at war with a Muslim state. Now, I understand that that is a Shia Muslim state, right? But here's the thing. I think Khabib doesn't really differentiate between Sunnis and Shias. There is a difference that he understands, obviously, right? Being that we don't have a beard and a mustache, right? That sort of implicates the fact that, hey, you know what? We are Sunnis. This is what we believe in. This is who we are. But the reality is this, right? Islam Makhachev pulled out of the White House for political implications. Do you guys remember the controversy with Khabib? Who remembers the controversy with Khabib? What controversy am I talking about? Remember the Charlie Hebdo situation in France. Do you guys remember what Khabib said about the Charlie Hebdo shooting in France? Let's go back in time, okay? Charlie Hebdo, Khabib. Let's see. Victory says the game versus Pereira. Oh, Gone. The Gone. I think what you mean to say is Gone, okay? Versus Pereira fight is interesting, though, because they're going to strike, and Gone has incredible movement. Correct. This right here is, yes. You're absolutely right about that. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Let's see here.
Guys, I know this is not my time to talk. I just want to say one thing. All these things beginning from my side and other guy when we are fighting. But don't forget, Ireland is the biggest supporter in the world for Palestine. Don't forget about this. We love you guys. You, your government, everybody. Here inside the page, only competition. MMA, all about respect. We love you guys because you guys support our brother in Palestine. We love you guys. I just want to let you know. Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, leave the ring about.
Look, let me explain to you about that, Marty. You said something to the fact that they should have had Colby versus Bo Nickel after that beef at RAF. I think I think Donald Trump is very disappointed in Colby Covington, okay? And it all started during the Leon Edwards fight. I mean, look, he got beat up by an Englishman right in front of Donald Trump, okay? And Donald Trump didn't forget that. I need you to understand something about Donald Trump. The dude is a sociopath, okay? And this is something that I've really noticed about him, I mean, not recently. This is something that I've known about him for a long time. Donald Trump is a sociopath. So if you want to know why, Colby Covington is not in this fight, let me explain to you why, okay? He's very disappointed in the fight, with Leon Edwards. And during that fight, he made America look really bad. And Donald Trump said, never again, right? And you're probably thinking, well, great, right? How about an American on American, type of fight at the White House? Okay, good. We'll throw Kyle Dawkins in there because he probably likes Bo Nickel more than he likes Colby Covington. And yes, Bo Nickel had that one loss against RDR, right? Very bad loss, but here's the thing. He's still a young prospect coming up, and Colby Covington is old and washed up at this point of his career, okay? Colby Covington is not the same Colby Covington anymore, and that is the reason why he's not at this White House. Donald Trump is disappointed in him. In fact, let me explain something to you, right? Donald Trump is a narcissist, right? And I know that word gets thrown around a lot, but man, this guy's narcissism is beyond through the roof, okay? Which means that Colby Covington was his narcissistic supply. When Colby Covington beat RDA, right, Rafael Dos Anjos for the interim title, he got invited to the White House because at the time, Colby Covington was the only person to support Donald Trump. Well, guess what? Now everybody and their mama in the UFC supports Donald Trump. So guess what? He has all the narcissistic supplies that he needs, and he can just kick Colby to the side, and that's it. Victory says, I guess they don't have any Americans fighting each other either. Kyle Dawkins, I mean, that's as American as they get, right? Isn't his brother like a Philadelphia police officer or something like that, right? I believe, I believe he's, his brother is a cop, right? So it doesn't get any more American than that, right? Kyle Dawkins comes from, he says, oh, I don't know who he is. Okay, so let's look up who Kyle Dawkins is, right? Because I told you his brother is a UFC heavyweight also. Sounds like a foreign name. No, it's not. I mean, obviously it's a foreign name because, not everyone was born with, with a last name like Miller or Smith. You know what I mean? That originates back to England. But trust me when I tell you, this man is as American as they come, and I'm about to show you why right now. So Kyle Dawkins' brother. First, before we get to Kyle Dawkins, I'm going to show you who is Chris Dawkins. So Chris Dawkins, okay, this is the brother of Kyle Dawkins. Okay, so here it is, right? His brother, Chris Dawkins, Philadelphia Police Department. There it is. She says, are you Muslim? Yes, I am. And proudly to be so. Let me know if you are Muslim as well, and let me know what part of the world you are from. He says, and he can't grow a mustache. Correct. I cannot grow a mustache, for the life of me, because I tend to shave it every day. Just like how I used to shave all of this, during the Marine Corps days, right? Now, as a staunch Islamist, right? Obviously, I'm going to shave the mustache and not the bottom part, right? So Again, it's like, Marine Corps standards, but the opposite, right? More like Mujahideen standards at this point. But anyways, yes. So, okay. So this is Chris Dawkins. Okay, the brother of Kyle Dawkins. Okay, now this is Kyle Dawkins. Okay, this is Kyle Dawkins. This is the dork that is going to fight Bo Nickel. Okay, that's the guy that's going to fight Bo Nickel. So there you go, right? Kyle Dawkins is 4 losses, 16 wins. So he's about 20 fights into his career. So he has a win over Gerald Meerschaert. He choked out Gerald Meerschaert back in UFC 322. He looks 4-2. Well, I mean, listen. Just trust me when I tell you he's as American as they come. Okay, you know what I mean? Like, just trust me on that. All right, Philadelphia, born and raised. Doesn't get any more American than that. His brother is a cop. He probably wanted to be a cop, but I don't know what happened. Maybe he got maybe he got a few troubles here and there that that prevented him from doing so. But anyways, yeah, Kyle Dawkins is on a hot streak right now, right? Since 2023. Okay, so he got cut from the UFC back in 2022. Okay, because he lost to Roman Dolidze and then lost to Eric Anders. He says, I believe you. I'm just saying he looks foreign. Right. Of course he looks foreign. I mean, with the blonde hair and everything like that. I mean, the dude looks like a straight up, German Nazi. I get it. Right. He either looks like a German Nazi or he either looks like, one of these, Eastern European guys who, I don't know, looks like, they work for the KGB or something like that. Right. But yeah, trust me when I tell you, American as they come. And yes, so this is an American on American fight, except obviously, Bo Nickel, just happened to have represented America in the Olympics. So I think he did, or did he just fight in the in NCAA, I believe, but I'm not sure. But either way, okay, so he got caught in 2022, right? He fought for Cage Fury all throughout 2023 and 2024. He comes back 2025, beats Michel Pereira, right? Coming back in his comeback fight to the UFC in Shanghai. This was back in August. He beats him, knocks him out, okay, with some punches and elbows in the first round, the first 43 seconds, and then he submits Gerald Meerschaert in 50 seconds in the first round back in November at the New York card. So there you go. He says Bo never went to the Olympics. Okay, fair enough. But all-American wrestler nonetheless, right? Xavier says, what do y'all think about the Austrian painter? Xavier Perez says. Okay, so this is a very controversial question, right? But, since you took the time and effort to come in here and ask this question, I will oblige you on that, right? What do I think of the Austrian painter? Well, first and foremost, before I answer this, I have to answer this in order to be favorable towards the algorithm, okay? What I will say about the Austrian painter is that he had unalived many people, right? He had unalived many people. And remember, I'm speaking only to try and offset the algorithm, okay? But I will give you an opinion on it, so stay tuned on this, right? He took out a lot of people. He discriminated one certain group. And by the way, that's one thing I need to preface about this. There was only one particular group that he discriminated against, okay? And we all know what that group is. That one particular group that he discriminated against. It wasn't 2 groups, it wasn't 3 groups, it wasn't 4. It was one particular group that he did not like. So, in other words, he had no problem with Jesse Owens, right? If you remember the African-American sprinter that competed in Berlin, in the Berlin Olympics. He had no problem with people like that. He had no problem with, I mean, for one, your name is Xavier Perez. I'm going to assume you're Hispanic. You're either Hispanic or you're either from Spain or the origins of that particular country. So, yes, you're either Hispanic or white. Either way, he had no problem with people like you. And here's another thing. He had no problem with people like me either. He had no problem with people who looked like me. In fact, the Austrian painter also supported many of my people in World War II, indicative of his relationship with the Grand Mufti of Palestine, who, by the way, happens to be a relative of mine. But let's just forget that I said that, because that's going to cause a lot of controversy. But yes, you know, the Grand Mufti of Palestine was his friend, okay? So he had friends in the Muslim world. In fact, he even had soldiers that were Muslim that fought for him, indicative of the Bosnian SS, right? Also, many North Africans that had fought for him during that time. So, yes, that is the reality of the Austrian painter. So I hope that I answered your question. He says, you seem like a very nice man. Thank you so much, Xavier. I hope that you do like and subscribe to this channel, because trust me, you have just tapped in to the most dangerous mixed martial arts channel in the history of mankind. Okay, and why do I say that this is the most dangerous mixed martial arts channel of mankind? Because you're going to find out. You're going to find out that not only do I talk about mixed martial arts, I talk about geopolitics. I also talk about gang politics that go on in California. So with a combination of all those things, you better believe that this is going to be a very explosive channel. So I hope that you stick around to, check it out. Victory says, yes, he wasn't as bad as people painted him to be, all pun intended. Xavier says, I think we were lied to believe that that many people died, 100%, but also he had over 140,000 people in his army and was about, okay. Xavier says, or the fact that there is a Zyklon B found in any of the camps. But yeah, I appreciate your opinion. You seem very knowledgeable. Thank you, brother. And then he says, keep it up, brother. Godspeed. Yes, thank you for that. Thank you for that. So, speaking of which, yes, back to the political implication that I had mentioned about Islam Makhachev, right? Because I really want to emphasize on this. A lot of people are going to call him a duck. A lot of people are going to say, well, Islam Makhachev didn't want the smoke with Ilya Topuria. Look, you guys are saying that because you want this UFC White House card to be absolutely banging, and I can't blame you. I can't blame you if that's your intention behind it. Yes, you want this card to be great, and you want this card to be way beyond what it was intended to be promoted as, right? But right now, the way that you guys are seeing it, you see it as a very lackluster card. You see it as a card that, doesn't really live up to par with what you had expected it to be. But the reality is, this is the best that they could do. Now, the reason why I say that this is the best that they could do is because there's a lot of injuries that happen in the fight game. There's a lot of people that pull out for injuries. There's a lot of people that have issues on, let's say, contracts with the UFC. There's a lot going on. There is a lot going on with that. So, this is something you really have to take into consideration. Yeah, so. Watch this. I need you to also understand. I also need you to understand why Khabib probably forced Islam Makhachev out of the fight. I want you to see this news clip right here, okay? This is regarding, by the way, this is regarding the Charlie Hebdo shooting that happened in France a while back.
आलमी शोहरत याफ्ता मिक्स मार्शल आर्ट्स के फाइटर ने गुस्ताखाना खाकों को शाया करने और उनकी हमायत करने पर फ्रांसीसी सदर इमानुएल मैक्रोन को कैसे सबक सिखाया। नाज़रीन, ये जानने से कबल आप हमारा चैनल ज़रूर सब्सक्राइब कर लें। नाकाबिले शिकस्त MMA फाइटर रूस के खुबैब नूरमहमदोव ने गुस्ताखाना खाके शाया करने और फ्रांसीसी सदर की जानिब से इस्लाम मुखालिफ बयान।
Okay, so obviously this is in, I don't know what language this is, probably Hindi. Obviously, not many people speak Hindi, but let me just preface this. It's basically Macron, the French president, angry at Khabib for sort of not condemning the Charlie Hebdo shooting, and there's a reason why I'm playing this for you.
मिक्स मार्शल आर्ट्स के नाकाबिले शिकस्त फाइटर खुबैब नूर मोहम्मदोव ने भरपूर एहतजाज करते हुए फ्रांसीसी सदर की तस्वीर इंस्टाग्राम पर शेयर की है। इस तस्वीर पर जूते का निशान बना हुआ है। खुबैब ने गुस्ताखाना खाकों की अशात पर शदीद गुस्से का इजहार करते हुए लिखा, अल्लाह ताला इस बुरी मखलूक और उसके तमाम पैरोकारों के चेहरे को बदल दे जो आज़ादी इजहार और राय की आज़ादी के नारे के तहत 1.5 अरब से जायद मुसलमानों के जज्बात को मजरूह करते हैं। जी नाज़रीन, उन्होंने मजीद लिखा कि अल्लाह पाक उनको इस जिंदगी और आखिरत की जिंदगी में रुसवा करेगा। अल्लाह के हिसाब में जल्दी है और आप देखेंगे। नाज़रीन, पोस्ट में मजीद लिखा गया, हम मुसलमान अपने नबी हजरत मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम को अपनी माओं, अपने वालिदैन, बच्चों, बीवियों और उन तमाम लोगों से ज्यादा मोहब्बत।
All right, long story short, Khabib pissed off the French president because he said that you cannot draw the picture of the Prophet Muhammad and get away with it, right? That is the preface of the whole thing, right? That's basically what is going on here. So as a result of that, this is what happened and this is what's going on. And that kind of tells you, some indications as to why he had decided to pull out of this fight. So, you know, there it is, man. All right. Let me react to this.
I'm trying to pay off your loan. Stop calling me. You sound like a psycho. I swear to God. I'm called.
So it turns out that Islam Makhachev has denied a fight against Ilia Topuria.
So, I mean, of course, you know, pejorative terms to describe Islam Makhachev. I understand you're quite angry at the fact that he's, you know, quote unquote, pulling out of this fight because, I mean, let's be honest, right? You want this card to be big, right? You're a UFC fan. This is what you expect out of the UFC. You want big cards, big names. And unfortunately, that's not the case here, right? And there's a reason why that's not the case here. It's because there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on with this. So to call him a duck, I think it's a little bit short-sighted to call him a duck on this one.
At the White House, he withdrew from the fight, according to this Spanish sports journalist, and we'll get into all of that and the evidence to support this claim in this video. But just to start off with, I want to clown on this guy for a little bit, and then we'll get into the evidence, because I know what people are going to say, Bromo. You said he was ducking Ian Gary if he fought Ilia Topuria. Now you're saying that he's ducking Ilia Topuria. He can't win. I'm going to explain to you, because I know you pea-brain Daggy fans aren't going to want to hear this. You're going to call me out for being a hypocrite. He can't win in your eyes. No, he can. Islam Makhachev, right, could have never been in negotiations for this fight and fought Ian Gary, okay? Just because I don't want this fight to happen doesn't mean that he didn't duck Ilia Topuria a second time. Just because I didn't want to see this fight happen at 170.
So, the second time, right? What does he mean by the first time? Well, let's preface this a little bit, right? Now, Ilia Topuria had a chance to fight Islam Makhachev. There was one common denominator. It was Belal Muhammad. Belal Muhammad could have beaten JDM. Unfortunately, he did not beat JDM. So Islam Makhachev decided, you know what, this is a great opportunity for me to become a double champion. So Ilia Topuria gets a chance to be double champion, but Islam Makhachev doesn't. Ilia Topuria is starting at 145 and then moving up to 155, and rightfully so. Now Islam Makhachev, as the 155 champion, moving up to 170, allowing Ilia Topuria a chance to become a double champion. Because guess what? If Ilia Topuria got to fight Islam Makhachev for the 155 belt, we would have never seen Ilia Topuria as a double champion ever. I need you to understand that, right? He would have never became double champion. So put that in context first and foremost.
Doesn't mean that he didn't duck Ilia, because he still did, all right? Regardless of how I feel about the fight, they are the facts, right? This isn't a video on, I really wanted to see this fight, and Islam's not going to let it happen. This is a video on, Islam Makhachev actually withdrew from the fight.
a day before the announcement was, and people are going to say, well, Dana White actually declined. He actually confirmed that this wasn't true. Oh yeah, Dana White, the guy that always tells the truth, right? And we'll get into something else that he said about the White House that's probably not true, according to Ariel Helwani. And other things that Dana White has said that isn't true. But all of a sudden, all these Dagestani fans, all of a sudden, believe Dana White with every word that he says because it conveniently backs up Islam Makhachev.
Well, I'm here to tell you that I do believe that Islam Makhachev did duck this fight, but specifically only the White House card, okay? And I told you from the very beginning of the stream why Islam Makhachev was doing that. It is for political reasons. He says, what do you think about the verbal battle between Dana and John? So here's the thing that's going on with Dana and John, right? I think that this is the UFC's job to diminish you whenever you don't serve their interest, okay? Conor McGregor has said this in the Chael Sonnen podcast, by the way. We are all cattle, okay? We are all cattle. He says the only difference with me is that I'm a free-range cattle, meaning that he's a high-caliber cattle due to the fact that he is, a much more marketable fighter than everybody else. Victory says, Dana said John was never going to be on the card. John said they were in negotiations. Yes, so Dana doesn't even deny that they were in negotiations, right? John said they lowballed him. Yes, they did. Because obviously, this is what happens when you have Conor Benn receiving $15 million, who, by the way, is nowhere near the star that John Jones is, nowhere near the star that even Paddy Pimblett is, right? I would argue Paddy Pimblett is way bigger in England than Conor Benn. Could we agree to that? Is there any type of disagreement with that? Tell me if you guys disagree with that notion, right? Who's bigger, Paddy Pimblett or Conor Benn? Because in the standards of what the UFC is willing to pay Conor Benn, they should equally pay the bare minimum $10 million to Paddy Pimblett. Victory says Dana said they were never going to have John on the card. He said he told everyone in the beginning, and it was never something they pursued. I disagree with Dana White on that. The reason why I disagree with Dana White on that, you know who wanted John Jones in this card? The commander-in-chief himself. Oh, John Jones, what a guy. I can't wait to see him at the White House. And you know what? I think I heard Donald Trump have a conversation with Kai Trump, the daughter of Donald Trump Jr. I believe they even mentioned John Jones in one of her videos, right? Kai Trump, who, is the daughter of Donald Trump Jr., right? She has her own social media, obviously. She does a lot of like golfing, content, right? And has also done, content with her grandfather, the president of the United States. She even mentioned this, right, in her video. Oh, is John Jones going to be at the fight or this and that, right? They even talked about it. So if Dana White and if Donald Trump and his granddaughter are talking about John Jones potentially being in the card, I mean, why would he be out of the loop? Why would he not be in a potential negotiation, whatsoever, right? If the president and the granddaughter of the president is talking about it. So I don't believe Dana White to a certain degree. I believe that I believe that look, this is what they do. They diminish you. Oh, well, that never happened. That conversation never happened. And that's just, the reality of the situation that you guys have to understand.
That's why they want to believe in this time round. Everything else Dana has said, complete bullshit lies, unless it's about Islam not ducking a fight, in which case, Dana White's telling the truth. Now, let me just break this down, why he's ducking, right? So, at 155, Ilya was moving up. He called out Islam Makhachev over and over again. Islam said, I don't want to give chances to these smaller guys anymore. Ilya needs to prove himself at 155, even though after he beat Moicano, he literally said, if anyone can make 155, get in the cage, and then we can talk, all right? So anyone can make 155, let's fight. Ilya makes 155, Islam fucks off to welterweight after beating Moicano on a day's notice. Okay, that's where he's leaving his lightweight legacy. Ducking Ilya, running away, and, fighting Moicano in his last lightweight fight. All right, great. What a great way to leave your legacy. Cool. Then he beats JDM for the welterweight strap. And then he's talking about how he wants to fight Kamaru Usman instead of Ian Gary and Michael Morales. He's top contenders, by the way. I've done 2 videos on this guy avoiding his top contenders. But now he's not only avoiding his top contenders, he's also avoiding a fight with Ilya Tuporia. So who does this guy want to fight? It seems like literally nobody. Maybe Usman.
I don't think that's the case, right? I think Islam Makhachev is in the point of his career right now where he wants to have certain legacy fights. He wants to have big money fights, right? And who's more accomplished? Kamaru Usman or Ian Gary? Now, I understand Ian Gary is unproven. I completely understand that. I mean, unproven in terms of championship legacy, but he is a top contender, right? But when you're looking at your resume in terms of former champions, and you want to have former champions on your list, obviously Volkanovski is one of them, right? Kamaru Usman could also be part of that. Yeah, Herb says Usman, right. He says, Islam isn't afraid to fight anyone. Victory says fighting is all he knows. He fought 100 times. Correct. The idea of saying that he's afraid or ducking, I need you to understand that these guys are only saying this to make a video, okay, to create a narrative. Now, look, I don't blame them for it. This is how you're going to get views. This is how you're going to get attention. It's not like I don't do it as well. Right? And I will tell you if I do it. The only thing is they're not going to tell you if they do it. But I also have fought. I also have been in gym. And I'm not saying that this particular person that's talking right now hasn't done those things. I'm just saying that I'm going to talk in reality. Okay? I'm not going to talk in, pejorative terms for no reason just to, try to create some sort of emotive language or try to create some sort of emotive reaction from people or anything like that. I'm being honest. Islam Makhachev is not afraid of anybody. If you say otherwise, it is because you want to believe a narrative, you want to run with sensationalism that goes on in MMA media, right? Let's be honest, right? Nobody in MMA media really tells the truth, right? Because they are either trying to get views or they are either trying to appease a company, i.e. the UFC, to maintain a press pass, right? But yes, that is one extreme side of MMA media. The other extreme side of MMA media is, anytime that a Dagestani does something that is unfair. Look, here's the thing, right? The Dagestanis are an easy target to hate on in the world of MMA. Let's be honest, right? A lot of you guys... Let's be real about this. A lot of you guys hate Muslims. Okay, can we be honest about that? A lot of you hate Muslims. A lot of you love to see a Muslim get knocked out. A lot of you love to see a Muslim get submitted or beat up, for the pleasure of the fact that, I mean, I'm not going to say that you all hate Muslims, but in reality, you hate the Dagestanis to a certain degree. Right? So anything that they do that is, unfavorable towards your interests or anything like that, you're going to talk about it, you're going to sensationalize it, and you're not going to be very honest about it. Right? But when you really try to be honest about this whole situation, I told you, the number one theory that I have, Islam Makhachev does not want to fight at the White House. Okay? But he'll be down to fight in Miami, he'll be down to fight in Abu Dhabi, he'll be down to fight in Saudi Arabia, he'll be down to fight in Chicago, he'll be down to fight in Mexico. He'll be down to fight in the Thrilla in Manila, okay? Down in the Congos, okay? The Rumble in the Jungle. He's down for all of that. What he's not down with is the White House card, and there's political implications with that. And I think a lot of people want to ignore that for whatever reason. Herb says, I don't think many fighters are afraid to fight anyone. Correct. Not, especially not at this level. Victory says, I think there are some fighters that are afraid to fight certain guys. Correct. But Islam isn't one of them. He is a guy, he's the guy people are afraid to fight because of his skill and style and his skill set. Yes. Victory says, I love the Dagestanis. Victory says, you can't get more haram than Miami. Okay, but here's the thing, right? Yes, Miami is a haram place. I understand that. So is Vegas. But Islam has fought in Vegas, right? Abu Dhabi is also, man, I don't want to go there, but let me just say there's a lot of human trafficking going on in the Middle East, okay? Let's just put it like that, right? But they're not currently, engaging in wars with it's not a government. Look, the White House has more of a political implication behind it, right? That is haram to a certain, fundamentalist Islamic belief. But yes, long story short, none of these guys are afraid of anybody. And if you say otherwise, you just don't understand the sport. Or you may understand the sport, but you also want to sensationalize things for views. And, lo and behold, that's what gets views by the end of the day.
Maybe he's been, who knows? Right, so he goes up to 170. Says that he's interested in fighting Ilia Topuria at the White House. He'd be willing to take that fight. Probably thinking that Ilia wouldn't move up to welterweight to fight him.
Wrong. That probably happened before the United States started bombing Iran. Okay, let's think about that, right? Let's think about the context that he's talking about, right? They are fighting at the White House. They were told that you could fight at the White House. But this was before they were bombing Iran, which, by the way, is becoming a very unpopular war. So now that Iran, comes into this situation, guess what, man? They're like, no, we're not going to do it. Maybe I'll fight somebody else, or maybe I'll fight Ilia Topuria down the road. Long story short, he's going to fight Ilia Topuria at some point.
Probably. Little guy. Finally wants to give the little guy a shot. This time at 170, though, where he has all the advantages in the world, right? And apparently, as this post says here, and again, we're going to get into all of it today. Negotiations for Topuria versus Makhachev didn't begin until last week, and an agreement was eventually reached, and the fight was going to happen at the White House. On Friday night, the UFC was informed that Islam Makhachev would no longer be able to fight at the White House.
Okay, so there's a lot of speculations that I could go into that, right? Islam Makhachev probably went into these negotiations by himself, and then Khabib came in and said, yeah, you know what, maybe we shouldn't do this. Look, there's a video that I have regarding this particular topic, right? I'm going to show you guys a video that I have of this particular topic right here. Okay, this was a couple of months ago. Three months ago, I made this. Islam Makhachev will not fight at the White House. Anti-American sentiments of war crimes. Okay, this is the video that I have right here. Okay. Islam Makhachev will not fight at the White House because of, he says, did you send Fresh to the Shadow Realm? No, I didn't. No, I did not send him to the Shadow Realm. He just hasn't been here for whatever reason, so. Tax you, and then for a person to choose to alleviate themselves away from those taxes, I don't think should be a fault to anybody, and it should not be a bear of responsibility, like, hey, you're not paying your taxes, so therefore you're not helping the poor and the destitute. Well, I mean, I'm sure Khabib helps the poor and the destitute. Okay? We don't look at a government the way that we look at the people. We look at the people as innocent. Donald Trump, even though he is the government, okay, even though he is the establishment, and some on the MAGA side will argue that, well, he is the most non-establishment type of politician ever. The one thing you got to understand about Donald Trump is that yes, he is a bit of a rogue, but he is not the overall reflection of America's history. You understand? He is not he did not cause the wars in the Middle East, although I will say that Trump was probably responsible for bombing innocent Muslims at some point of his political career, at some point of being the commander-in-chief and being that guy who holds the red button of doom to whatever place he wants to bomb on. Go watch that video that I made 3 months ago, okay? Islam Makhachev will not fight at the White House card. Anti-Islamic sentiments of war crimes. To kind of give you guys a little bit of some context, okay? Islam Makhachev will not fight at the White House. Anti-Islamic sentiments of war crimes. Okay, yeah, as far as he goes, I don't know what is going on with fresh melon juice. I have no idea. I mean, you know, I don't hold these people's hands, bro. You know what I mean? Like, I don't tell these people to show up at the chat or not show up at the chat. Nor do we even really know if he's a real person or not. You know what I mean? But that's what it is. He says, do you watch animal movies? What kind of animal movies do you mean? You know, I don't know. I'm not much. Look, I don't hate animals. I don't have anything against animals. I'm just not an animal guy, right? Like, you're not gonna catch me having a dog in my house or anything like that. So.
And well, all right. When did that fight fall through again? When did Dana White say that the fight fell through? Was it Friday, a day before they were going to announce the card? Funny that. But you could say, well, Bromo, this page is making up lies and trying to link the two to get views. All right, cool, fair enough. But we have a clip of Justin Gaethje talking about how on Thursday, all right, he was told he wasn't on the White House card.
Okay, that is true. He did say that. Justin Gaethje did say that. I need you guys to also understand that this is a White House card, right? There's a lot of NDAs, a lot of non-disclosure agreements that they have to abide by. On top of the fact that you're dealing with the federal government, you're dealing with the Secret Service. So there's a lot of, hush, situations you got to abide by. You know, there's a lot of things. Yeah, man. There's just, it's a lot more complicated than what it beats the eye is what I'm trying to merely explain.
Then a fight gets pulled out on the Friday. Now he is on the White House card.
We have got to the point where literally anybody can build a fully working app without knowing how to code. This is big.
Take with that what you will. We'll look into that a little bit later on. But I don't want people to think like I'm flip-flopping here. All right. The reason why Islam Makhachev is now ducking Ilia Topuria is because he accepted the fight and now he's pulled out of that fight. If Islam Makhachev never agreed to fight Ilia Topuria, never were in conversations to fight Ilia Topuria, which I think he was, because Ali Abdelaziz, and I had the tweet ready, said last week that the UFC are in talks with Islam for a really big fight, much bigger than Ian Gary, all right, and to stay tuned.
All right, yes. So I agree with that. I think all of those happened, but I think in the last minute, Islam said, you know what, man, I'm not going to do it because of X, Y, and Z. And my theory is political implications, right? So, yeah. Let's move on to Chael Sonnen and what he said about the White House here.
If your energy crashes at too long, or the long-term testosterone resetting, feeling of his users. Ifs.
Skip this.
Exactly as I predicted. Joe, let them know I sent you. UFC White House cards come out. It was exactly as I predicted. And guys, by the way, I felt like a little air got sucked out of the room. Like, it's so fun to guess what these are going to be. It's so fun to have this magic wand and go, I'm going to put this guy with this guy. But you have no idea if you can. Like, you have no idea what this guy is saying. You have no idea if this guy is healthy. Like, it's one of these things that when you finally get the answer, there's no way to not go on. Like, it's one of these things, right? You got the biggest star in the sport in Ilya Taporia. You have the next biggest stars in the sport. Like Sean O'Malley and El-Kheer have been battling out for numbers for close to 3 years now. I got them all on the card. It's an incredible card. Got an interim champion versus the undisputed champion. You got Pierre.
I agree. It is an incredible card, right? But it would be even more incredible if it was a UFC International Fight Week, right? It would be more incredible if it was not the White House. The thing is that people sensationalized it as this big Super Bowl, Woodstock type of, event, right? Once in a lifetime event. When you hype it up to that level, okay, and then you have the White House as the backdrop, you expect more out of it. You expect more. But this is the best that they could do due to the contract negotiations and also the injuries that may plague certain fighters.
We're introducing to the weight class, which is going to feed into Tom Aspinall, no matter what outcome. I think the
Well, here's the thing, right? Marty said, right, they oversold it. Oversold, under-delivered. Oversold, under-delivered. Okay, so when you're talking about a White House fight, okay, talking about fighting in front of the White House, that is overselling. I mean, look, because it's never been done in the history of combat sports. So, of course, you're going to oversell. Why would you not? Why would you not oversell? This is what you have to do. Because it is the White House card. Now, the problem with that is now you got to deliver. Easier said than done. Okay? The UFC delivers most times during the year, right? They deliver at most cards. They deliver. Even the fight nights at the Apex, they deliver. They deliver it all. One issue is this. The one issue is that a lot of people want more. They want a Super Bowl. They want a WrestleMania. They want the Ultimate Warrior versus Hulk Hogan, and that's just not what you're going to get. Because that is not how professional fighting works. Okay, you can't just pull out anybody that you want. He says, right, but then we anticipated the craziest card of all time. But how are you going to do that? How are you going to do that? Look, here's the thing, right? You're dealing with human product. Okay, the product here are human beings. Now, exactly what do I mean by that? Well, the product is the fighters. They are, the human beings. They are the ones that are performing. So if they can't perform and they can't get out there, what are you going to do? This is the best that you can do, and that's the reality of the situation. Victory says, yeah, all the stars, I wouldn't have been surprised if they got GSP to come back, throw Lesnar on there too. You're not going to get Brock Lesnar. You're not going to get GSP. Because here's the thing, right? These names that you just mentioned, they are superstars at a time where you had superstars. We live in an era right now where these men are nowhere near superstars, okay? The guys that you're seeing coming up in the roster, the guys that you're seeing coming up as, the highly touted prospects, right? They are not stars because they just don't have the marketability behind them. Now, going back to the Tom Aspinall and the Eddie Hearn situation, I think it's fair to say that, hey, you know what? Maybe Eddie Hearn is going to attempt to do what the UFC is not able to do, and that's market him, right? Throw him in there with, Graham Norton. Graham Norton is like the David Letterman of England, right? Throw him in there with, let's say, Bear Grylls, kind of like what Anthony Joshua did. This is going to raise his profile. This will make him a superstar. But right now, a lot of these guys right now are not superstars because we live in an era that just can't produce it due to the lack of promotion or maybe even the lack of enthusiasm by the UFC. Mark Haney says, ADD gang, shout out to you, my man. He says, I was expecting Connor, someone like GSP or Nate or Nunes or Islam. Yes, and that is the problem. They can't deliver with those guys because, for one, it's impossible to just bring them all in one table. Okay, by the way, Ronda came out earlier and said something about Francis Ngannou joining her card, right? She said, hey, this is a big middle finger to the UFC. What did Ronda Rousey say here? Let's take a look at what Ronda Rousey said here. Ronda Rousey responds Francis Ngannou. Let's see what Ronda is talking about here. Okay, so Ronda didn't have praise for the UFC after Francis announcing her as a co-main event. She said this in exact words. UFC White House card sucks. So she's saying her card is a lot better than the UFC card. Okay? A lot better than the UFC card according to her. So is she right? I don't know. I don't know about that, man. I mean, you know, Francis Ngannou is fighting a guy that nobody knows, okay? And at the same time, she's fighting somebody that is not even in the equal competition as her. But at the same time, it is somebody that is, well, arguably probably a bigger star than her, right? I mean, Gina Carano has been in more movies than Ronda Rousey. Now, obviously, Ronda Rousey is a bigger star in the world of MMA, but I would say Gina Carano is a bigger star in the world of movies, in the world of TV series, in the world of that particular media, right? Is that fair to say, right? Not a competition for her in man, I think she's going to finish off Gina Carano in round one. It's going to be one of those Ronda Rousey classic fights where she finishes people in 20 seconds, 8 seconds, 30 seconds. Remember back when they had the UFC 3 video game, you know, commercial, right? You know, they would have Conor McGregor there. Oh, I finished this guy in, you know, in 13 seconds. Mike Tyson, I finished this guy in under a minute. Yeah, Mike Tyson was in that game as well. Ronda Rousey, I finished, you know, my opponent in 20 seconds, right? That's kind of how they commercialized a UFC 3 video game back in the day. But yeah, man, that's what I think is going to happen here because it's not a very competitive fight. So, you know, the CEO of the UFC, Dana White, made headlines, okay, last weekend when he finally announced the UFC's plan for the upcoming White House card in June, okay? So, UFC Freedom 250, headlined by the lightweight title unification between Ilia Topuria and Justin Gaethje, okay? And features a co-headliner between Alex Pereira and Cyril Gane for the interim belt, which, by the way, is just going to leave an asterisk for Alex Pereira's career if he wins this one, right? And it will damage him even worse if, let's say, he loses to Cyril Gane, only for Cyril Gane to become a two-time interim champion, right? So the results either way is very lackluster, right? Alex Pereira is not a real heavyweight champion if he wins, but neither will Cyril Gane, and it will be for the second time that he becomes an interim belt while losing the real undisputed fights to multiple people. Ngannou, John Jones, and then gets that no contest with Tom Aspinall. So, yeah, obviously, yeah, this is from bjpenn.com. He says the cards lineup has received mixed responses from the UFC's fan base, pundits, fight roster. The event will compete against Ronda Rousey's first MMA fight in 10 years against Gina Carano, a card promoted by Jake Paul, MVP. Now, Rousey is relishing in the opportunity to go head-to-head with the UFC for her MMA return, despite still a cordial relationship with Dana White and others, okay? But that hasn't stopped Rousey from making her opinion on the upcoming White House card known. All right, Ronda Rousey's taunting Dana White after the UFC White House card has been announced. And in the recent social media post, Rousey took a shot at White and the UFC over the recent White House fight comments. Francis Ngannou versus Felipe Lentz joins Rousey and Carano on May 16th. How's that for a BAMF-laden doubleheader? That's what happens when you put fighters and fans ahead of shareholders. And this is Ronda Rousey's statement. P.S. UFC's White House card sucks. I mean, look, That's a bit harsh to say. I think the UFC White House card is way better than Ronda Rousey's card. Can we agree to that a little bit, right? Is there a world where we can agree that that card is a little bit better than, than the UFC fight, right? I mean, I'm sorry, than Ronda Rousey's Netflix fight. I think it's a little bit better, but you let me know in the comment section below.
Pierre is not fighting for an interim championship. I think that Pierre is fighting for GOAT status. Like, it's a really incredible card, but it's one of these interesting things. There was a level of ridiculousness.
Correct, Marty. Not even close. Not even close. Just because we're not happy with this card, it doesn't mean that it's not better than Ronda Rousey's card. Okay, like Ronda Rousey thinks that her card is better because you got a bunch of UFC legends in there. But reality is that the only MMA legends, not UFC legends, because Carano never really fought in the UFC, right? But you really have only two UFC fighters in there, two former UFC champions. That's Rousey and Francis Ngannou. Now, what she's probably saying is that, you know what, I'm the biggest female star ever, and Francis Ngannou is the, is the linear heavyweight champion of the world. So that's what she has going on for her card. She has the linear heavyweight champion of the world, whereas the UFC has not even an undisputed fight, it's an interim fight. He says, yeah, not even close. Who else is even on this Netflix card? A bunch of people that you're not going to know, right? Regional fighters that they're going to pick out from the LFA, guys from 1FC, people that have ran their contracts out with the PFL, etc., right? Or maybe some fighters that are going to be allowed to fight on that card as a borrowed, as like some sort of like borrowed talent of some sort, right? But that's really what you have going on for this card, and that's really it.
That came out from Jump Street on this card. And I remember begging you guys, hey, slow down. There is nothing you've been told yet that's accurate. I remember having to tell you that. You were told this was going to be on July 4th. I came out and said, slow down. They don't have a date. Then the date came out, and it wasn't July 4th. You were told there was nobody going to be there. I said, hey, slow down. Slow down. There's going to be some fans. And then it finds out there's 5,000, then it finds out there's going to be 85,000. I'm only sharing with you, like, there was nothing about this was right, but it was told by, like, these industry insiders. There's gonna be 6 and 7 title fights, and this just got weird. You don't want 6 or 7 title fights. We've had events where there's 3. 3 is the maximum. 3 is the most in 30 years of business that the UFC has ever put on one night. I challenge you to tell me without looking up what event that was. Like, that isn't the way that you want to do it. And sometimes your title fights aren't the fights that the crowd is dying to see. By the way. So I mean, this whole thing like really got ahead of itself. The fact that El-Kheer is moving up is an incredible opportunity. John Jones is saying that he wants on the card. That's an incredible opportunity, but it got a little bit weird. Like, there was this suggestion that John Jones would fight, but it would not be for a belt. How do you reconcile that? John Jones is going to fight, but it's not going to be for a belt. Now, the same people that wrote that article told you that Conor McGregor was going to fight and that it could be for a belt. You know what? How do we reconcile that? What is your big fascination with this belt? By the way, I mean, it is one of those things where I just kept hearing about this damn belt as opposed to hearing about fights that people wanted to see. And a belt fight is very different. Belt fight is very different, where you're taking a champion. There's nothing you can do with it. Like the red corner is now picked. There's no interchangeable. Oh, okay, great. Now we got to find somebody to put in the passenger seat, and it just gets weird, right? It turns into, well, is that the fight that you wanted to see or not? And by the way, what if it goes the distance? I mean, did we learn anything?
I did see that interview, Victory. Yes, I did. I didn't see the part after Conor left. I only watched the part with Conor.
on Saturday night. What do you guys think? Do you wish that fight would have gone 15 minutes or that it would have gone 25 minutes? It's a different sport. You don't have a wrong answer. I'm not scolding you for what you think. I'm just sharing for you. Like, there was some really weird ideas when people are coming out saying there's going to be 6 and 7. It's going to be nothing but title fights. It's like, what good does that do? Why do you think that that's a good thing? Where do you suggest that locking a corner in and now finding the passenger to sit in the car, where do you find that that's a good thing? Where do you find that taking a champion and putting him from the 5th fight of the night? Right? I mean, where are you coming to the conclusion that these are good things? And El-Kheer going up to heavyweight, El-Kheer having a chance for GOAT status. Surreal Gone being given an opportunity that I don't know anybody has ever had and failed at more times aside from myself. I don't know. I would have to look that up. I was given 2 in the WEC and 3 in the UFC. Like, I can't remember a time that a guy was given an opportunity for more belts. But if the guy...
Colby Covington is one example of that. Yeah, Colby Covington. That's about it, really. That's the only one that I could think of. Debate says here, UFC is overrated. I could take them all. UFC is overrated. I could take them all. I mean, oh my goodness, man. Are we going to have a roast session here with a debate of everything present? Listen, debate over everything present. You need to understand something, right? You're one of these guys that, look, man, I remember I was going to post this on my social media the other day, right? I literally said that, like, you know, there's these guys out here that have never trained a day in their life but just lift weights all day and they think they can take on trained fighters, right? Like, first of all, let me tell you something, right? If you and me were to get into a fight, right? I'm not saying you specifically because I don't know you from a can of paint. Again, you're a random with no face, no profile pic, no type of motion on the internet or anything like that. You're a nobody, right? And I'm not saying that, you know, to be pejorative or to somehow, you know, put you down, but I don't know you from a can of paint, right? Here's what it is, right? Yeah, they get mad and see red, bro. That's what I'm saying, right? A lot of you who just lift weights all day, so all of a sudden you feel like you're strong and this and that, you know, all of a sudden you think you could take on a trained fighter, right? He says, if you could see my body, you would believe me. Yeah, bro, I've seen all types of bodies, bro. I've seen all types of bodies, okay? Now, look, you know, I'm in pretty decent shape, you know, at 40 years old. I barely got a stomach at 40 years old, right? Not at all, actually. You know, I have a pretty flat stomach, but I don't have Bruce Lee abs. That's for sure, right? I don't have Bruce Lee abs, but I'm in pretty good shape. I've been in cages. I've been in the ring. I've been in practice rooms with guys that are cut up like Bruce Lee, guys that are built like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and quite frankly, I've done a number on them. Because here's the thing, right? You could say that, oh, if you've seen my body, you would believe me. Well, here's the thing. If you've seen my footwork and I started crip walking around you, you would get hit with so many shots, you would think you were in Inglewood Blood getting shot by Crips at a drive-by. You wouldn't be able to see where the shots were coming. You wouldn't be able to even comprehend or interpret the footwork that I would implement in front of you and the strikes and the angles that I would hit you with. And that's only talking striking, right? We're not even talking about the grappling aspects of what I could do to you, let alone what a normal fighter or a fighter that is, you know, somewhat trained that they could do to you. You know, I mean, look, that's really what it is, man. The majority of guys that just lift weights all day and the guys that really don't do anything other than just, you know, lift weights or, you know, don't even do any cardio, right? They just get there, just, you know, do curls all day, getting their arms big or this and that. I mean, he's like, what did he say here? He's out you in a blender, son. He's out you in a blender? What do you mean by that? He's out you in a blender. Explain what that means. But yeah, rest assured and understand, man, most of you who only lift weights and don't train martial arts, I think a lot of you live in a false sense of security because the majority of people look at you and say, wow, that guy's in good shape. I wouldn't mess with him. The reason why most people wouldn't mess with you is, yes, you are in good shape. You could probably take on untrained people. No doubt about that. I will take a bodybuilder over some skinny guy who doesn't train at all, right? But I am not those skinny guys that don't train at all. I am not one of those fat guys that don't train at all. Nor would it be, the case for any trained fighter that would absolutely obliterate you, even if you had, Arnold Schwarzenegger abs in his prime, or even if you had, some sort of shape in you. He says the folks there are just entertainers. Oh, who is an entertainer? Are you talking about fighters that are just entertainers? I mean, look, that's another thing you really got wrong right there, right? I think the majority of people who don't fight or don't train, they get around a fighter. You know what they say to themselves? You know what? I think I could take this guy. Especially if you're one of these, Bradley Barton type of guys. You're thinking to yourself, I could take this guy. You know why you're thinking that in your head? You're thinking that in your head because, quite frankly, you're around these people. They seem very meek. They seem very, cordial. They don't seem like very violent people unless you get around me. If you get around me, I'm going to let you know flat out, I'm a violent person. I am a violent human being, and I will hurt you at the first opportunity that I get if you give me a chance or you give me a reason to. I am a violent man. But you know what? I've been around other fighters that are not. They're not violent people. They're nice people. Okay? They're nice people who are not around, violence all the time. They're people that are intellectuals. There's fighters that are, pacifist, right? That they only fight in the cage and they don't fight out in the streets. I'm not that guy. I am not that guy. I will purposely hurt you. I will purposely damage you. And I will do it in front of your kids, in front of your wife, in front of your family. And I will humiliate you to the highest degree and the highest order and the best way possible. Just because I enjoy hurting people. Okay, that is who I am. But other fighters are not like that. There are other fighters that have a completely different personality. There are other fighters that approach life, approach people in a different manner. And that's really all there is to it. And then Marty says, these bodybuilder guys have a 45-second gas tank. Facts. Facts. I want you to do this debate, okay? I want you to film yourself shadowboxing, okay? And then after you film yourself shadowboxing, I want you to look at it with a very critical eye and ask yourself, can I beat a UFC fighter just by looking at how you shadow box, just by looking, I don't know. I don't even know if that works for you or anything like that, because I think guys like you are just in the highest delusion when it comes to your ability. He says, tell Dana to send me the contract. Look, at this point, I'm not really going to take you serious. The only reason why I took you serious in the first place to even address you is because of the fact that you have this take that I think is really important to analyze, right? Really analyze, right? Because, I think guys like you really get away with saying a whole lot of things that don't make any sense. And also, you've also never really been punched in the face, I don't think. And now, I'm not saying you specifically, because again, I don't know you from a can of paint. I could sit here and insult you all day, say a bunch of things about you that I don't know. You can pretend you are who you want to be, because remember, we're all online. We can pretend who we want to be, except for me, obviously, because I'm out in the public. I'm, doing these live streams with you guys. You guys see me on a daily basis. So, there's not much that I could really hide from when it comes to, really explaining who I am or what I have going on or this and that. But you guys can, because you guys are anonymous, right? So, we just have to take what you say either by face value or take it with, a critical eye of some sort. But anyways, guys, listen, this is all that I really have for this one right now. I really just wanted to come in here and address the Islam Makhachev situation, obviously the White House card situation as well, with the John Jones situation, the Islam Makhachev situation, and the possibilities of who was, part of this, whole entire, pullout gate of the White House fight card. That is all that I have for you guys right now. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next content, inshallah.